Well, that's it. The domestic European seasons are over, and we ride that train into the Champions League final this weekend. What's up, everyone? It's Dave from A Soccer Fan Walks Into a Bar, ready to go with another great episode alongside Diego and Aaron. We'll take in the breadth of the Premier League season, give out some awards, and preview the big match for Saturday. Stick around. All right, welcome. Let me just get our levels up here. All right, so what's up, Aaron? How was the long weekend for you?
It's going well.
Good. Yes. So happy. It's not really happy Memorial Day, but whatever you say for it. Wishing everyone a good and safe long weekend. We have a huge week coming up. More quality rather than quantity. With 2 European finals, some MLS action, and obviously one of those European finals is the big one, the Champions League final. But let's jump right into last weekend and the final Premier League weekend. A lot of moving parts with European qualification for next season, so it was very interesting to see all that. We had 2 teams fresh off of a European final in Tottenham and Man United. Everyone was wondering how they were going to fare. So let's jump right over to it with one that hits close to home with you, Southampton hosting Arsenal. Ross Stewart in the 56th minute for Southampton, sandwiched between 2 Arsenal goals, Kieran Tierney and Martin Odegaard. Odegaard's, I believe, was in the 90th minute. So a late goal to get the 3 points for Arsenal. Overall, how was the season for the Gunners?
I think they're going to relish the season. They're going to look forward to next season, but they're going to think, what if? Again, 14 draws.
Yeah, we were talking about it just before the show. I was incredibly surprised that they had that many.
Kieran Tierney with his final goal for Arsenal.
Yep.
He's out at the end of the season. And Odegaard finally finding a scoring shoot.
Yeah, the last few games, we had talked about it about a month ago, where he just was a shell of his former self, but really seems to have picked up late in the year. Many would say too little, too late.
Correct.
But obviously, you want your horses going in the right direction toward the end of the year. So good to see that he's back on the good side of things, and hopefully he has a good summer, and they start hot in the next season in August, September. With all the obviously they have Champions League next year, and hopefully making a run with Liverpool for the title, and Man City. You never know. You got Chelsea in the mix. So should be a good race next year for that. As we talked about with the Europa League. Sorry, I couldn't think of the European competition. As we talked about the Europa League finalists, Man United and Tottenham, they played this weekend and kind of went in opposite directions. United hosting Villa, who really needed the win to secure Champions League play. United came out with a 2-0 home victory. That was somewhat of a result of Emi Martinez's 45th minute red card. So they were a man down for the second half. Did you catch any of the United game? I know obviously your eyes were on the Arsenal match, and it's tough with this last weekend, everything being literally at the same exact time. I like it. I like it better when I don't have a horse in the race. You can just kind of sit back as a fan. And Bournemouth really had nowhere to go in terms of qualifying for Europe or relegation. So it was nice to be able to watch, a little bit of everything. So, to see that red card for Villa, it really set the pace in the second half for United. Villa had to make several changes. They were only able to muster, I believe it was 1 shot on target. United dominated possession 2/3 to 1/3. And, the final showed, and maybe it's a little beacon of hope for Ruben Amorim.
It's essentially how United should have played in the final. Like you said, hopefully it's a wake-up call going into next season.
Right. One thing of note was not just the starting lineup, but the full squad was missing Onana, was missing Joshua Zirkzee, and missing Alejandro Garnacho. So
maybe that was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously every manager has picks their favorites, and there's some guys that no matter how they're doing in training are always going to be in the squad. We've already heard rumors of Garnacho on his way out to help satisfy the PSR rules. He will, as a homegrown player, will count 100% toward that in terms of balancing the books without Europe next year. So it'll be fun to see what United's transfer summer looks like. And in fact, they start playing. They're out in Eastern Asia, I believe, next week or the week after. They have an early start.
Preseason very early.
So, all right, moving over to the other side of the Europa League final. Tottenham hosting Brighton. Our Seagulls on Hudson were in attendance. Was that yesterday? I can't even keep the track of the days. Diego, what day was that?
Yeah, yesterday morning.
It was yesterday, right? Holy moly. Too much soccer going on. Said no one ever. All right, so Tottenham hosting Brighton. An early penalty from Bournemouth alum Dom Solanke, and that was it for Tottenham en route to 4 goals from Brighton, all in the second half. 2 from Hinchelwood, 1 from O'Reilly, and Diego Gomez in the 93rd minute. And it was an absolute dumpster fire for Tottenham after that goal. We kind of expected a little bit of a championship hangover from Spurs, but only 4 shots total, 2 on target, including that penalty, to 23 shots and 8 on target for Brighton. Brighton had almost 70% possession in the match.
I mean, you got to hand it to the Tottenham players. They were busy building the IKEA cabinet over the week.
You saw, that meme that I sent you, it was perfect. So yeah, again, you'd like to finish on the upswing, just like we talked about with United, but obviously Tottenham is in Champions League next year. As funny as that is to say, I think yesterday was a bit of a write-off for them. Obviously they didn't wash themselves in glory after in that match, but to see what they've done and to see potentially what they're capable of. Where do we see as your mortal enemy in North London? Where do we see Spurs next year?
I mean, your hope that they're going to change over the off season, but I mean, I see the middle of the pack in the UEFA in the Champions League.
In Champions League, yeah.
I don't know. It depends on what they do in the offseason.
Yeah, they've definitely got some moves to make. They have to beef up that squad. The way Ange Postecoglou plays, it really takes a deep squad to manage that, and especially with Champions League phase now in effect. You're playing against Europe's best week in, week out on top of your domestic schedule. So to be able to do all that is going to take not just bodies, but good bodies and quality players. So elsewhere, what else?
Oh no, I was going to say he did prove himself right in saying that he does win things.
He did.
In his second season.
It's funny. I was joking with a couple Spurs friends of mine that you almost hope they lose so they can just cut their ties with Ange and move on. But here we are. He won a European title for them, and how do you get rid of him on that? So elsewhere, another team that needed a result for their hopes in Champions League, Newcastle hosting Everton, and Everton under a red-hot David Moyes went to Newcastle, got the 1-0 victory, goal from Alcaraz in the second half, and again, this, Diego, you and I have been talking about this for months since Moyes came in, and it's just incredible to see that, Moyes with his traditional Route 1 style, get the ball up, get it wide, get it back in, is producing tons of results for them, and they were able to jump up the table. They finished in 13th place on 48 points, well ahead of West Ham, Man United, and Tottenham. What a year for them to finish out as they go into their new stadium for next year. Nowhere to go but up for them, I feel like, and it'll be good to see some competition back in Merseyside between two teams. So as an Arsenal fan, you guys love the London derbies. The Merseyside derby's always been a touchy one. And it's kind of there's always fireworks in it, but it's pretty much been dominated by Liverpool the last number of years. So you like to see, some more movement along that. All right, our final match that we'll take a look at today in the Premier League, at least, is our AFC Bournemouth closing out the season at home to relegated Leicester City. Jamie Vardy did not feature at all. His plan was to play his last match at home, which he did the week before, scored a goal. So I believe he finished at 500 appearances and 200 goals for Leicester. And Bournemouth, behind 2 Antoine Semenyo goals, dominated Leicester City. They finished ninth place, right? Is that what we have? Yeah. I can't even. Yeah, ninth place overall. Total dominance from Bournemouth, which is not usually their strong suit. Generally speaking, when a team sits back against them, they really struggle. Bournemouth did not concede a single shot on target. They had over 60% possession, and in Dean Howson's final match, he had some words for the crowd afterward. It really was a nice, feature for him and for the club to go out. Again, we've talked about this with almost every team here. You want to go out on a good note, get into that summer preseason mode, and keep working toward your goals for next year. So
I think Bournemouth will. They had a rough second half.
They did.
The first half they played great. They'll definitely be looking back, and hopefully they can at least grow upon that first half. Of the season.
Yeah. I mean, really, it was a bad. What would you say? Maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah. Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
They were. I think at one point they were only 1 point off of 4th place, and then again, as injuries happen, as teams get streaky. The same way you can have good streaks, you can have bad ones as well, and it just kind of fell apart. It really shows, how important having 18, 22, 25 men on this roster, that can all contribute. Obviously everyone's contributing, but there is a significant talent gap, after players 15, 16, and 17. So
right, especially late in the season, the last thing you want to see is the star player, the player that's been reliable throughout the games drop, and
right,
who comes in for them? That's the big question.
All right, so that is going to do it for us for the Premier League. You know what? Actually, let's flip things around. I was gonna do some surprise stuff later in the day, but let's go for it now. Let's go through what we think maybe for some Premier League awards. You guys into that? Diego, you good? All right, so let's see. Let's start with Premier League Player of the Year. Who you got, Aaron?
I'm trying to think the forward for Liverpool, who's had an amazing.
Mo Salah. That's my vote as well. He, I believe he led the league in both goals and assists this year, which is just incredible. Are you in agreement there? You guys?
Oh man, if it's but yeah. Objectively speaking, yes.
Yeah. All right. How about let's see, Manager of the Year?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, you got to give it to Slot, right? It's his first season.
Let me see. They did just release. Let me see if I can find it as we go live here. Manager of the season. The nominations were Thomas Frank from Brentford, Eddie Howe at Newcastle, Nuno Espirito Santo at Forest, Vitor Pereira at Wolves, Arne Slot from Liverpool. So those are your 5. In all honesty, I think Iraola probably should have been there, maybe in replace Thomas Frank at Brentford. Not to disparage anything that he did. They had a great year as well. But for me, I think what Nuno Espirito Santo did at Forest this year, with far from the roster that Liverpool has, again, we're splitting hairs here. These are, several incredible years that these guys have put together. I think my vote is for Espirito Santo. I don't think I can overlook what he's done, under that they were in 17th place last year.
Yeah.
And they were, literal minutes away from qualifying for Champions League. And honestly, for a good chunk of the season, we're giving Liverpool and Arsenal a run for their money for the top two. So that's my vote. Nuno Espirito Santo. What about you, Diego?
Fine, no words.
Yeah.
Again, if we're talking objectively, because our hearts is one thing and results. Yeah, I will say the Liverpool coach should get it. Will get it.
Yeah.
The only one I could see is probably Newcastle's coach.
Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
Yep. Again, they are bolstering their squad. They are far from an elite squad right now. And he's really more so than just, the results. He really seems to have brought back a mojo, with Newcastle. He brings a young excitement into the squad. The fan base loves him. So he definitely did well. They won the Carabao Cup this year, breaking what was that, a 50-60 year drought from a title. And now that I mention it, another, or now that I think about it, another, mention maybe for Oliver Glasner as a obviously, this is just Premier League, not including the cups, but they won their first title, their first trophy in their 118 year history, I believe it was.
Yep.
And he's really gotten them, moving at a good pace and a dangerous squad in the middle of the table and maybe continuing upward. So, good to see that as well. Again, there's so many great stories this year, whether it's Bournemouth, obviously, some of these stories that are closer to our heart, but Crystal Palace, Newcastle doing a great job, Forest, Arne Slot winning in his first year. The despite that relegation, the kind of, swan song for Jamie Vardy at Leicester, a lot of good stuff. So let's take a break there. We'll jump back with Diego. We'll talk some stuff elsewhere in Europe, and we'll also get into the MLS. So stick around, and we'll be right back, guys. All right, welcome back
What's
to A
up,
Soccer
everybody?
Fan Walks Into a Bar. I'm Dave. We got Diego here. Now we have Aaron behind the scenes helping us out.
Yes, sir.
So there we go. Let's jump into the Serie A. We already covered La Liga last week. Barcelona
Yeah.
ran away with the title.
That's it.
Bayern Munich won in Germany. So the only real, title fight that was left in the in the
Europe.
major European league.
I mean, the ones that we are interested in.
Right. Was Napoli, the fight with Napoli and Inter for, the Serie A title. Both teams drew last week. And then on the heels of Napoli's 2-0 win at home against Cagliari, sorry. Napoli wins their title, their fourth overall, their second in 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
Antonio Conte does it again. Whether we like him or not, he continues to find ways to win titles.
Winning coaches win titles. That's all they do. I mean, again, like you said, whether we like it or not, he did his job. He put his team together. And I mean, he was coming from a team that literally just won a title a couple of years back. But they have a significant dip. The previous years. So for him to kind of like bring him back to that belief and that championship mentality was a great thing for Napoli.
Yeah.
And nobody saw it coming.
No. So this is the third club that Conte has won Serie A with.
Yeah.
Juve and Inter as well. He won Serie B, the second division with Bari to get promoted. He won a Premier League with Chelsea and an FA Cup. When do we start talking? I mean, there are other people that have talked about this already, but when do we start talking about Conte in that upper echelon with Ferguson, with
Oh no, he's already
Klopp,
there.
with Ancelotti, with
Yep.
Guardiola.
No, he should be there. He should be. I mean, again, sometimes it's better to go, under the radar just in case, just because of the pressure
Yeah.
and all these other things that come with the
I mean,
territory.
really, what's
But
missing?
he's there.
What's missing for him is on the European front.
Yeah, Champions Leagues and stuff like that. Yeah.
So
He hasn't gotten the chance. I mean, he's got good teams, and I guess, the Juventus of those days was the best chance he had, with Ronaldo and everything. But that wasn't a big. He hasn't have a really heavy hitter like the Madrids or Barcelona's or Bayern's, to go to the Champions League and
let me see,
actually
'cause
try to do something with.
I'm looking back. He was with Juve a long time.
Yep.
I can't remember if those were Allegri's teams in the Champions League final or if it was Conte.
No, I think it was Allegri. And I mean, and what Napoli did this year, to be honest, was just a steady pace. They got the results they had. Inter dropped a bunch of really important matches, against teams in the
Right.
middle of the season that just didn't let him catch up. That was kind of like the Inter thing. They were ready to catch him. They were ahead, actually, I think, at some point of the league, but they will just lose these matches that they should never lose. And what Napoli did was just keep adding up.
Right.
They're just steady. They might have not won them all. They might have not played pretty either, because some of those matches were not pretty, but they just got the results they had to.
Ground them out. Yep. So Conte has not even made a Champions League final as a manager.
Yeah.
I believe he won one or two with. Did he win in '97 with Juve as a player? I want to say he did. Let's see. Sorry, 96 he won. He was a runner-up in 97, 98, and 2003, all with Juve.
Okay.
And then obviously, like we just said, he never won or never made a final as a manager. So I do think he's probably, top or among the top of that kind of second tier of managers behind the European greats. You have to, if you're managing in Europe, if you're playing in Europe, you have to do it on the European stage.
Yep.
In
That's
this day and age, just doing it domestically is not enough anymore. So.
Exactly. That's part of the dues now to put you in the upper echelon. You have to win European titles, and not just Europa leagues, because there's a couple of coaches that have won, a few of them.
Unai Emery,
but that doesn't
from Arsenal and Aston Villa.
But they don't put him up there because that's not important enough. You gotta win the orejona, as we like to say in Spanish. But yeah, I mean that's just a thing that's gonna have to come for next year with him. Napoli, he's got grit.
Yeah.
Are they going to have the necessary firepower to actually compete with PSG now, compete with Inter again on a higher stage? Barcelona is going to come down again, and what are they going to do against them? There's so many big teams in Europe that this might be a little uphill for him. But if anybody can sneak in undetected and do the thing, it will be him.
Yeah. All right, so let's bring things back home. 100 miles to home. We had plenty of MLS action on the weekend, including both Hudson River area teams. Red Bulls on Saturday traveled down to DC, and they took a 2-0 win away from home. Goals from Cameron Harper and Mohamed Sofo, and here we are again. The Red Bulls, had a little bit of a struggle the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But they seem to be back on good terms. They now sit in 9th place. It's that last playoff spot as we're just approaching the halfway point. But it is pretty tight between 6th and 9th place. So
absolutely. Anything can happen at those points.
Right.
And they're getting their football back. Their style. It's a little doubtful, though. I've seen other teams playing much, much better that are actually safe on the playoff picture.
And not only that, but I was actually just on the way here. I was listening to a radio show, and I believe it was Counterattack. Don't quote me on that, though. I don't want to misrepresent who I was listening to. But they were talking about just the absolute gauntlet that is the Eastern Conference of the MLS. You have Philadelphia, Cincinnati, Columbus, all firing on all cylinders.
Yes.
Nashville sneaks into third place. Orlando City's up there. Inter Miami behind, all the Barcelona guys, including Mascherano at manager, sit in seventh place.
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
they're having a tough time. Like you said, is that back to reality? They got their first year treatment. They got treated nice. All the calls went their way. This is a whole new season of the NFL for them. NFL, MLS.
Yeah.
For them, and they're gonna treat it like it's the NFL. No more calls for you, baby.
Right. All right. So elsewhere in the Hudson Valley, New York City FC hosted Chicago Fire. I was there in attendance for Military Appreciation Day. I brought up a buddy of mine who's a Navy pilot. We were able to get down on the field and watch warm-ups, and got a little bit of special treatment, which is always nice.
Yeah.
An early goal from Chicago, really against the run of play.
Yes.
Kind of, shocked everyone, including the fan base.
I was shocked.
Yeah, it was wild.
It was crazy.
But then about 10 minutes after that, a Brian Gutierrez red card really flipped the whole match on its head.
Yep.
NYCFC started getting into the ascendancy. They were knocking on the door. I felt that they really needed to get one in the first half before the halftime ended, before Greg Berhalter, Chicago manager and former U.S. men's national team manager, could make
adjustments,
some halftime adjustments. That didn't happen, but Pascal Jensen and NYCFC just came out firing again. Yeah. And then, of all people, Munsef Bakrar breaks the duck for NYCFC.
Your best friend.
Oh my God. I was talking with a couple other buddies of mine at the stadium about, just how they reacted when Bakrar came onto the field. But he got the job done in the 58th. A beautiful turn and shot from Hannes Wolf in the 70th to give NYCFC the lead. And then another red card on a second yellow to Jay De Avila in the 84th minute. Alonso Martinez converted the ensuing penalty, and all said and done, a dominant 3-1 victory. The two-men advantage does kind of paper over some of the cracks, but again, these last couple of weeks after a very rough 10 days for NYCFC, where they lost, I believe, 3 matches, including getting knocked out of the Open Cup.
Yep.
NYCFC has now, gone on a little bit of a streak here. They've won, let's see real quick. They
2 or 3 in a row.
Well, they beat Red Bulls 2-0 in the Derby, and they drew at DC United.
Oh, tie.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
So there we are. So on the heels of they lost to Pittsburgh on May 7th. They lost at home to Montreal on the 10th, and then they drew on the 14th to DC. So right after that, 2 very good results, and here we are back again. NYCFC comfortably sit in 6th place. They are the top of that kind of logjam in the middle here. So
the thing is, they have to be really careful about keeping those results going, because they didn't really. They look well. They play well. They were kind of firing in some cylinders, but there's still that last quarter feel woes that they have. They can't just kind of finish in.
Right.
Being a man up helps out, opens that one space, that one player that can be. But if they're even strength, they are lacking that last pass, and I still haven't seen it though. I know they won, and it was a good win.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
I kept seeing the passes. You go out from the side and you try to cross it to the middle, and it's just short, or it's just off the player by a couple inches. And I'm not gonna say that doesn't happen in a soccer match. That happens, but it's just too often for them. And it's not a matter of like the player didn't see the play at the moment. They were in sync on the play. It's just the pass was wrong. The move was wrong, or I don't know, the communication was lacking. But there is always that one little thing that stops them from scoring the goal.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I see. They're looking much better. They're getting their results. They just got to clean that up. If they clean that up, they can easily score 3-4 goals a game.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I think it's coming. It's again with a squad this young, you're gonna take those lumps, and you just have to kind of ride it out and hope that.
And you know what? You are absolutely right, because the speed and the energy that they have, that is show of youth, and that is one of the best things they have right now. So yeah, build up on it and clean it up, I guess.
Yep. All right, so that'll do it for 100 Miles to Home. Let's check out what's on tap, all the interesting matches and watch parties we'll have here in the tap room. We will kick it off on Wednesday afternoon, the Conference League final between Real Betis and Chelsea. Should be interesting. You have competing styles. You have a quote unquote underdog in Real Betis against a perennial power in Chelsea. Back on the ascendancy, looking to compete with the big dogs for Europe. That would be in Champions League next year. Let me just see.
That'd be a tough one though, because Real Betis plays that South American Spaniard style, like tough, gritty, cumbersome. They're just gonna make life miserable for those Chelsea players.
And Betis finished 6th place.
In
La Liga this year. So, I don't know. What do you think? Any predictions?
I want to say Chelsea is is going to come up with the victory by maybe a goal, but it's going to be a hard fought match. It might even be 1-0.
I think Chelsea in penalties.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes actually sense. What do you think,
from you, Aaron?
I just want to see Anthony actually
win a
do
title.
well, prove the Man United haters wrong.
So what's funny is he could have won both a Europa League and a Conference League title this year.
Well, it's funny now that you mentioned Manchester United fans and proving them wrong. Napoli with their midfielder, their best player,
McTominay.
McTominay.
Scott McTominay. Former United player.
First year from Man United, and boom, there you go, a Scudetto for him.
There's also a rumor that they're going to get De Bruyne.
I just read that this morning too. Yeah, De Bruyne possibly to Napoli.
That will be sick.
Honestly, that is a
imagine
perfect team and league for him at this point.
Yeah.
He still has the fire. He can still churn it up, but he's not a Premier League 90-minute horse race.
But imagine him, Lukaku, and McTominay. That's gonna be sick. Oh, that's gonna be excellent. I'm excited.
Manchester's finest over the last decade. And here we are. All right. So after that, we roll into the weekend. Saturday, 3 p.m. The big one, Champions League final. PSG, Inter Milan in Munich. What do we say? We have PSG, who's never won the Champions League title.
No.
They lost to, was that Bayern Munich in the 1920 season, I think?
Yes.
So they're a one-time runner-up. Inter Milan, I believe, has won 3 times, including a treble in 2010. Again, competing styles, competing, tactical
100%.
abilities.
This is Paris. This is Paris's chance.
Yeah.
I don't think they can get any closer than this right now, because next year all the superpowers and all the super teams are gonna get back together. You show signs of Madrid and all these other teams finally getting back into their gears after all these changes. So if they don't do it now,
it's interesting though that you mentioned that, because PSG just got rid of their super team and went back to a more organic development,
and that's what's working.
Bringing in the best of Paris and the best French players they could, and they ride that to a Champions League final.
Exactly,
so,
but that this is their chance. They gotta win it with this. So I think they're gonna have more urgency than Inter. Inter is just, they're licking their wounds right now, so they're gonna come out angry too. But I think Paris Saint-Germain has way more urgency of winning. This is going to be one of those windows. Plus, it's going to be the first one. So these people are ready to be heroes over there.
I think PSG does take it, and that's not just my AC Milan, heart, making that choice.
Hate on Inter, huh?
Yeah, I think this is the year for PSG.
Yeah.
I think between Donnarumma in the back and all these great young French guys. They have Barcola, they have Doué. Dembele has been incredible for them.
Oh my God, the resurgence of him. Oh wow, it's crazy.
So I do think PSG goes to the good and takes this one. But it's a final. You never know. Any thoughts from you, Aaron?
I would hope PSG just to lessen the sour of the loss.
Yes.
Lose to the champions. Yeah, exactly.
And along the same lines as what you were talking about with Anthony. PSG player Kvicha Kvaratskhelia has the chance to. He won the Scudetto with Napoli.
Yep.
As he will be
2 years.
awarded a medal, I believe, for that. Then he was transferred to PSG in the winter, en route to winning the title with PSG, winning Coupe de France with
Yep.
PSG, and could now complete
treble.
a treble
Another
with
treble.
French team and still win a Scudetto, which
That's
would
crazy,
be,
though.
again, we've been playing soccer for 100-something years, and to have something like this pop up is just
It's crazy, dude.
incredible.
Yes, sir.
We will also try to find an extra TV around, which I'm just kidding. We do have the extra TVs, but NYCFC's away match at Nashville.
Yep.
So a clash at the top of the table, or two teams that are not necessarily known as dominant forces in the East.
Yep.
Will do battle. Should be a good one, and it'll
yeah.
be a real test of this now hot NYCFC squad to see what they can get done.
Exactly. That is actually what I was going to say. This is the test. This is here. We got a few matches left for the postseason to start off and everything. So they really need to step up
Yep.
and be like, all right, are we going to compete with the top of the table, or are we just
And
going
it's also be a good test
do
to
the
see, again, what do we need in the summer transfer
True.
window? Who do we try to bring in? Who do we get rid of?
Very true.
Who's not cutting it? And what positions do we need more strength at? So.
your friend needs to stay. Forever.
Oh my God.
He needs to retire as a
No. I did. Funny story. While I was at the game yesterday, I was actually seated next to Matt Freese, the goalkeeper, his family.
Oh shit.
So it was funny to see, his mom in a NYCFC goalkeeper jersey. I didn't know it was his mom at the time, but I'm thinking to myself,
what are you doing?
they don't. If you look on the MLS store, custom made, goalkeeper jerseys through the MLS are not there.
I think to do. No.
So that was my first, hint that I'm like, wow, this
that's his
this
family.
purple Matt Freese jersey, it's got to be a ringer here. So it was real cool, and she was very sweet. I didn't want to take too much of her time. I had a quick chat with her. So that was a fun little story, and that's one of the great things about having these local MLS teams. It's it's not like an Arsenal or a Real Madrid. You have access to
the people,
players,
and their families,
and people, and it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, one for the road. And any of you guys have anything other than my notes?
Well, I got a funny little thing for the three of us. Is we just got done with the Premier League. I asked AI what the predictions for next year are going to be. Can you guys get the top 5 that it said?
Top least? 5?
What do you guys think next year for top 5?
Top 5, I think, will be Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, Newcastle.
What do you think, my guy?
I think Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Aston Villa.
Well, funny. So it has Chelsea at number 5.
Really?
You guys were good on that one. It's got Newcastle at 4th because of, their good results, the new coach, the youth. Manchester City 3rd. They're not giving, AI is not giving them. They say that they're just in limbo right now. They're, too old a little bit. A couple of people need to retire and all that stuff. Liverpool comes in 2nd.
Whoa.
So guess who's going to be the champions according to AI? Arsenal. They're giving it to Arsenal because of consistency, because of the good coaching, and they show a big pickup on the end of the season.
And that's why we don't listen to AI.
We just sign a striker, please.
Yeah. That's actually what they say. One of the things they say is,
what's wrong with Mikel Merino?
Listen, he's fine.
Are there any rumors abound, Darren? Do we have any strikers coming in for Arsenal? Who are they?
Gyökeres from Lisbon.
Victor Gyökeres. Yeah. Where's he at? Sporting? Porto? Sporting, yeah.
Yep. Well, see, and for our teams, they have Brighton Albion at 9. So they said they're going to, keep their place. They're going to stay where they ended. But our Bournemouth team, they brought them down to 14th place. Ooh. They're saying, AI is thinking that, all the players that are going to leave this year and, the youth of the team. And it also says what we said, to be honest. And funny enough, they are having a hard time closing out the years. So, it's always that second half of the season where they kind of have a huge drop off. And that's what they're saying. They're going to say they're going to be in the top 10 for the first half of the season, but same as this year. They're just going to drop to 14 because they can't keep up. So, yeah, that was my thing. I just wanted to ask you guys, see if we think the same as
so
AI.
we all got you had Villa.
I had Villa. Yep.
So you got 4 out of 5. I had all 5 in the wrong, albeit both of us in the wrong order.
Yeah, I mean, that order is crazy though.
But yeah, I mean, it's AI. It's we all do, they do it in college football, like the day after the national championship. The predictions for next year.
Yep.
Way too early to tell, especially before a transfer window. My one for the road, Xabi Alonso was officially unveiled at Madrid. So he leaves Leverkusen after 3 years. They had, they did a German domestic double, lost in a Europa League final to Atalanta last year, went undefeated in German play. And he will be replaced at Leverkusen by Erik ten Hag from Man United. So, who was out of work since October, since United fired him and replaced him with Amorim. It'll be interesting to see what, if he can continue that upward trend that Leverkusen has. They did finish second place this year, I believe. Let me just double check that before
It'll be a redemption tour for him.
It could be. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So Bayern finished first on 82 points, Leverkusen second on 69 rather, and then Eintracht Frankfurt third on 60. Followed by Borussia Dortmund scraping into Champions League play, fourth place on 57 points. So,
well, yeah, like Aaron said, it's a redemption tour, and hopefully, I mean, the team is there. He's gonna have the freedom of having a bunch of older players, so he might be able to start finagling with bringing his type of players. The people that he understands himself better with. But the one thing I'm thinking is Madrid with Xabi Alonso. I mean, I don't know if it's it feels like a weird fit.
Yeah, I mean, well,
as philosophy goes.
He's a former player there. He's got the DNA.
Yeah.
My only concern is just the upheaval of that squad, and will they give Xabi Alonso the time needed to reinvent that club in his mold?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he, like you said, he is part of the Madrid family, yes, but Madrid is not a patient team.
No. Florentino Perez is among the best sports executives in the world, but he is not a patient man.
Exactly.
We'll see what their transfer window looks like.
And this is not a team now. This Madrid is not a team that you can win over by saying this is how we used to do things.
Yeah.
In my day,
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why he wants to keep Luka Modric around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am with bated breath. I really am looking forward to the beginning of La Liga next year in the fall, and to see, can the young guys at Barcelona keep this pace up?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Can Xabi Alonso, work his magic?
Yeah.
The surprise squads of last season, does Bilbao make another run and get into, stay in Champions League?
Atletico.
Where do they go? When does Simeone's run kind of come to an end? It's his tenure really in the modern game is unprecedented.
No, absolutely. He'll be there forever. Aaron, what would you were going to say something?
I was just going to say that it's always interesting to see when somebody essentially gets handed the keys over to an F1 car.
Yeah.
When the team is rolling, or the team has, clashing attitudes and personalities, to see somebody have to come in and take over from essentially, super teams.
Yes.
How are they going to act with that super team? Is the super team going to listen to them? Are they going to respect them? That whole thing.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you, Aaron and Diego. On my behalf, I'm Dave. Another great episode of A Soccer Fan Walks Into the Bar in the books. Don't forget to like, share with our friends, share online our podcast. Throw us a like on Instagram. Check us out Facebook as well, YouTube, Blue Sky. Throw us an email. Jump into the Discord that we've got growing very nicely.
hopefully we'll see you up in the tap room either on Wednesday for Europa League or Saturday for the Champions League and MLS action. If not, we'll catch you right here next week on the episode. Thanks
Cheers,
again.
guys.